Be people coming in. Oh, wow. It's actually told me.
That's new.
So we will get more people in the next 5 minutes coming in. Hi, everybody. Hi, Bill. Hi. Oh, Anne. Hi, see you. And I see Trudy, who just got out of the picture. And Dale.
Oh.
And Stan and Mary. Everybody's coming in.
Good.
I think we will have more people showing up yet.
Yeah.
Hey, Dale and Trudy, did anyone ever show up to help you learn how to deal with your buckthorn? I remember from our last meeting.
Leslie's hand.
My name is Leslie.
You got it. Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
We haven't actually dealt with it yet, though.
Oh,
we have chemical on order and etc.
You'll get to it.
Yep.
I did learn some fun stuff about garlic mustard the last 2 weeks. There was a trial done by the TLC where they deheaded with a weed whacker all the garlic mustard at Wolf Oak last year, and no garlic mustard came up this year.
Really?
So you didn't have to pull it as long as you got it knocked down, weed whacked. You had to weed whack everything before it went to seed or while it was still in flower.
We need dandelions like that. We need to.
Yeah, that doesn't work on dandelions.
I suspect, and I suspect they may have still had first year plants come up that they're going to.
Right, but they'll weed whack those. Yeah. They'll weed whack those too. Yeah. Since actually, they didn't. There weren't any when I was there, but we'll give it another minute and then we will get started. And other people
enjoyed this lovely day. It's been gorgeous out.
It was gorgeous. It still is.
Well, okay. Shall we?
Yeah, Leslie's going to start.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Green Drinks. Happy to see you all. And those that are visible and those that aren't, that's all good. We're just glad you're here with us on this beautiful June day and excited about our program once again to share with you. If we haven't met, my name's Leslie Krebs. I'm part of the All Volunteer Committee, which is Judy and Nancy and Pat and Ann and Cynthia. And I think I got everybody for the moment. Green Drinks started a while back, if you are new to us, and has been around the world, all over. And that's what's really neat about this, is a way to connect with our neighbors throughout the world. Our goals in Crystal Lake and McHenry County are really about providing an opportunity for networking, connecting, building our community, some education opportunities, which is our program every month. And then finally, helping connect you back to the community through our community announcements at the end of the time, so that you can be involved in whatever way works for you best. But it's all about connecting. So we always like to share a little bit of where new green drinks are starting and happening. And the list has been smaller during COVID, but still a couple places are starting out. One is in Byron Bay, Australia. Who's been to Australia? Anybody? Yeah, good. And the other one is in Skelmersdale in the United Kingdom. So those two are just starting out, and we welcome them to this worldwide event and thing, I guess I would call it. Anyhow, Duke's Ale House is one of our co-sponsors. They host us each month, or have for a long time, and they will be hosting us again soon. We're excited about that. And then the Environmental Defenders of McHenry County is our other co-sponsor. They take care of our mailing list and our Zoom account these days. So thank you, Defenders. We are going to be trying out a new thing next month, and that is a slow transition back to Dukes. And I don't know if I can explain it, or Cynthia, did you want to do that?
Sure. We are excited to, after a long year, to be able to meet in person. So we are going to try a hybrid approach, and reservations will be necessary because we will only take 25 people, so we can keep spaced. We will still be masked. We must be fully vaccinated, and there will be no food as we're used to, but you can get a drink. And the arrival time is the same as in the past. In the good old days, 5 to 7 is the whole program. And so I will have instructions in the next e-blast after this event this evening, in the coming days, with the information about the speaker. And also you will make reservations through me, defendersdirector@gmail.com, and I will have that in the email invitation that goes out. So, but it will be hybrid. So some people will get to go in person, the first 25 to sign up, and otherwise everyone will be on Zoom as usual. And we're slowly getting back into it. So thanks for your patience as we try to do this.
Yeah. And we hope that this will work. So as Cynthia said, be patient with us as we do this slow transition back. And we're excited to be together again, certainly, and not in boxes all the time, as they say. Pat is the one who has organized this great program for July. So Pat, would you like to share about that?
There you go. Now I can talk. We're excited to have McHenry County Connect. It's a countywide bike plan being completed through the McHenry County Council of Mayors. So the speaker will be Emily Dosher, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, is the planning liaison with the McHenry County Council of Mayors. She's going to do the presentation via Zoom, but we will have Scott Henning, Assistant Director of Transportation for the county, and John Paul Deifla, Transportation Planning Manager at Dukes, to answer your questions about this exciting development. So looking forward for it being unveiled.
There you go. And that will be the first Wednesday of July. So I believe that's Wednesday, July 7th.
Correct.
And again, 5 o'clock to 7 at Dukes. Thanks, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all for the moment. So I want to invite Cynthia to introduce our speaker this evening that she worked hard to get, and we're very excited to have you, Gina. So take it away, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending tonight for a very important conversation about environmental justice. This could be titled Environmental Injustice, Environmental Racism, and I know that Gina Ramirez, our speaker this evening, who is the Midwest Outreach Manager for the Natural Resources Defense Council, will probably define all these different words for us. But as I was looking at some history, to see how far back this terminology goes, and I'm sure I've only scratched the surface. In '83, the US General Accounting Office found through a study that 3 out of 4 of off-site commercial hazard sites, waste landfills, were predominantly found in Region 4 in the South, predominantly African-American communities. So considering that African-Americans made up only 20% of the regional population at the time, yet that was all focused there in those communities, this is what we're talking about. And there are some examples in the Chicago area that Gina will be talking about and touching on, I'm sure, and hopefully update us a little bit on some legislation that we had hoped would go through, and we'll get maybe an update on that as well. So again, Gina is with the Natural Resources Defense Council, and she handles sustainable land use and zoning rules that can provide crucial protections to areas of Chicago. like the Southeast side. And there are some areas that she's going to talk about that you've probably heard about in the news. There's been a lot of visibility with these issues lately, thank goodness. And it's about time. So here we have Gina Ramirez speaking.
And before Gina gets started with her presentation, we forgot to mention that we would like to have people turn off their video and your sound while Gina's giving her presentation, but you can jump back in. I think, Gina, you talked about maybe having your questions at the end in a question and answer. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And we'll do questions at the end then. I'm jumping off.
Can we put questions in the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And during the Q&A, if you want to go on camera to make this more personal, at that time when Gina is done with her formal presentation, you can do that, or you can put questions in chat. So Gina, I invite you to take it away. I know you want to share your screen. And
yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I am Gina Ramirez. I am the Midwest Outreach Manager for Natural Resources Defense Council. I'm also a third-generation resident of the southeast side of Chicago. So this neighborhood borders Indiana. It was once one of the largest steel industries in the city. U.S. Steel and Wisconsin Steel were located in my neighborhood. U.S. Steel once employed 20,000 workers, one of them being my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father. So we have a long history of multi-generational families in the neighborhood who, you know, just kind of have stayed and have lived through the heyday of the mills, and then the deindustrialization and the kind of environmental burdens that still exist and the toxic legacy. So I'll talk a little bit about that today, but, you know, just sort of talking about what is environmental justice. This is one of my favorite kind of graphic images. I'm a very visual learner. And this is environmental justice is our cry of defiance against the onslaught of oppressive toxins and toxic oppressions that threaten to submerge our homes. And you can see, it looks like, you know, a community of color, you know, fighting off sort of some polluting entities, flooding, you know, you think about climate change, and it's, you know, the communities that are suffering the disproportionate burden of polluting industries also, you know, experience climate change much drastically than communities that don't live amongst polluters. And I always like kind of start out like how this work impacts me, you know, like as a person. This isn't really something I signed up for. Like, I went to school for sociology. I'm very interested in social movements, probably because of my upbringing and me experiencing the industrialization, kind of the tale of two cities between my neighborhood and downtown Chicago and the north side of Chicago. And so I like to give this quote as sort of like my foundational theory that Chicago's environmental problems, like many of the city's issues, are tied to inequality that has developed over decades. And so this quote, "Stop calling me resilient," because every time you say, oh, they're resilient, that means you can do something else to me. I am not resilient. And this is a quote from an organizer during Hurricane Katrina. As I talked about before, and as was mentioned, you know, low income communities of color, especially in the South, you know, in Louisiana, you know, experience climate change and, you know, polluting industries exponentially. And as I give a lot of these talks, often I get like, wow, you're such a strong person. Like, I don't know how you do this day in and out. And it's like, no, like I did not sign up for this. Like, I didn't want to like spend time away from my son testifying at city council or going to community meetings in the evening, trying to fight off a new polluter or learning technical language and policy and laws. This is just kind of the burden that's placed on communities who experience environmental injustice. So I like to give this quote just sort of as context about how a lot of environmental justice residents feel. So the Southeast Side, my neighborhood, this is a picture of it. It's been a dumping ground for years. In 2014, there was these black piles that you can see in this photo, petroleum coke. It is a border town, my neighborhood. So in Whiting, Indiana, there is the BP refinery, one of the largest refineries in the United States. And the excess soot from the refining process is called petcoke. And that was being shipped off to my neighborhood. My neighborhood has tons of brownfields, tons of vacant land because there was so many steel industries there 100 years ago. So, you know, Indiana saw this as an opportunity. Hey, this is a community that has all of this open toxic land. The community is pretty desensitized. They're used to it. They don't have a lot of political power, political will. We're just going to store this black powder substance openly across the street from Little League fields, across the street from homes. So this was in 2014 where I started to see these 7-story tall piles. And I see piles all the time. I grew up seeing piles everywhere. But this one was different and it impacted me in a different way because I was pregnant at the time and was like, wait a minute, I'm going to be raising my child in a neighborhood where there's black dust, you know, flying around. This is not going to happen. And so the community banded together and fought really hard with Natural Resources Defense Council, which is when I was first introduced to that organization. And I'll talk a little bit about the success that we had with that. But, you know, with the discovery of petcoke, there was air monitors that were put in place. And there's over 200 industries in my neighborhood. And so, you know, you can't have air monitors on everything, but luckily when we discovered petcoke, they put up some air monitors that triggered another contaminant that was blowing in the air. And that was from SH Bell. So I will go to that in a minute. But this is kind of a map that NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, created when it was talking about the disproportionate burden and the cumulative impact of industry in Chicago. So the red zones you can see are in the west side and in the south side. And those neighborhoods are predominantly Latinx and African American. And so again, we're seeing a clear pattern here that, you know, in these manufacturing districts, communities of color are the ones who are most impacted. And you'll also see really high levels of asthma, cancer, neurological disorders, autoimmune disorders. And so before this data that we created with community groups and NRDC didn't exist. It was kind of anecdotal, and it was really hard to get the city and public officials to listen. So this is a tool that we use day in and out that's really impactful because you can clearly see, hey, these red zones are on the south and west sides of Chicago. So manganese is a metal that is used in the steel production process. As I said before, when petcoke was discovered, the air monitors were put in place and it picked up manganese. When it's inhaled, it can cause neurological devastation, especially in children. It can lower IQs and it can cause Parkinson's-like symptoms in adults. There has been some health studies on it. There's a similar facility in Ohio where children, you know, are on like IEPs and all sorts of different things because this had neurological devastation on them. So yeah, it's there's a bunch of fugitive dust, and it's also stays in your soil as well. So there's a video made. I won't show it because every time I do Zoom, like share screen, the video audio doesn't work. But this is a video. I could drop the link in the chat afterwards that we created NRDC with a lot of community members, just kind of talking to neighbors who, had manganese levels, really high levels in their soil, talking to attorneys and talking to experts about what manganese is and the impacts that it has. And manganese is not handled anywhere else in Chicago. It's just handled on the southeast side because of its close proximity to the steel mills in Indiana that are still in operation. And you look at downtown Chicago, and they are just building nonstop, especially like in the West Loop and downtown. So there is a demand for steel, but it's at the expense and at the health consequences of Southeast Side residents. So this video kind of explains the constant inequity and placement of polluting industries in Chicago and how one part of the city benefits from this manganese handling while it's devastating, you know, the southeast side. It's a really great video. Again, I'll share the link. But how did this happen? There's government failure to share and act on available information. You know, there's inadequate monitoring and inspections. So in 2019, there was an Office of Inspector General report that showed inspections of polluting industries were down 60%. They're merely underfunded and understaffed, especially under the Trump administration. And because of the location of these neighborhoods, especially my neighborhood, the Southeast Side, it is so siloed off from the city. It's about 16 miles south. By the time you kind of report dust in the air or a foul odor, it's gone by the time they get there. So then they just write it off like, oh, we didn't see anything wrong. So we have been advocating to get designated inspectors, on the ground there day in and out because we have over 200 polluting industries on the Southeast Side. There's not enough health-based research. There's a ton of research on lead and its impacts on children, but there isn't a lot of research done on manganese or petcoke or any of the other fugitive dust emitters on the Southeast Side. And so I meet on a monthly basis with the Chicago Department of Public Health. We have begged and pleaded with them to find some funding to do a health study in our neighborhood, but they don't have the funding. We have actually, the community members have reached out to the University of Kentucky, and they are doing a health research study on manganese, children ages 7 to 9. It has been pushed back because of COVID, but we are starting up again this summer. So we're really excited about that. In preliminary studies, they did find higher levels of manganese in toenail samples of children from my neighborhood, the Southeast Side, compared to other children in the city. So we know this is an issue and we need to keep testing. And, with data, not only comes knowledge, but comes power. Once we have this accurate health-based research, it'll be a tool for us to talk to the Illinois EPA to urge them to put a ban on manganese, either at the state level or the city level. And, there's these thresholds for excavating the soil that I will show you in the next slide. So these are the facilities that emit manganese, SH Bell and Watco. Watco is a factory that is right across the street from the Little League field. Really, really upsetting. And SH Bell is right across the street from homes. And this is the manganese contaminated soil map. So when they found that manganese, was shooting off red lights on the air monitors, they started to test the soil. And so you can see the red zone, the orange zone, and the green zone. But we don't think that the thresholds for the levels of excavating the soil goes far enough. We would like to see these orange homes who have the contaminated soil. We want their soil remediated as well. There are about 1,000 children living within these zones. It's right near an elementary school. And it's devastating to think that these children can't even play in their backyards or front yards because there's manganese in the soil. So that's something that we're working on with the Illinois EPA, trying to urge them to have stronger protections. and to lower the threshold for excavation, and eventually would love the city of Chicago to put a ban on manganese because it's just not worth the health consequences. This is the fact sheet. You know, like I said before, spent a lot of evenings, you know, wheeling and dealing with the city. When we found out, they gave us that map of manganese in the soil. They gave us this fact sheet, and they told everyone, before you enter your home, just take off your shoes and mop your floor every day and close your windows. They would not be telling, you know, people in other parts of the city to do that. You know, we really feel like if this were a problem in downtown Streeterville, the city would be excavating that soil the next day. And this was 2 years ago. We just found out they're slowly starting to remediate that soil. So there's been families living in that red zone for years. So some of our goals is to conduct more air monitoring, provide health studies, meet regularly, get a ban on manganese, and amend these, you know, zoning laws that allow this to happen in the first place. You know, the southeast side and the west side of Chicago, they're zoned planned manufacturing districts. So because they are zoned that way, essentially any industry that wants to get a permit, the way the law stays right now, they will get it because my neighborhood's zoned for industry. And so I'll talk a little bit later about an ordinance and some legislation we are trying to pass in order to, you know, alleviate that huge problem, because you have to get at the root of the problem, which is broken land use and zoning laws in Chicago that's upholding racism and upholding segregation. So those are the few of the things that we've been dealing with, but there's also an array of things trying to move into my neighborhood. Reliable asphalt is a concrete crusher. It wants to move across the street from homes. We had one community meeting with them, haven't heard too much, but you know, you have to kind of keep it in the back of your mind. They're probably trying to move in. North Point Logistics Facility, everyone loves 2-day Amazon shipping. And that kind of comes at the expense of polluting communities of color. Because there is this, you know, vacant land, it's easy to set up shop, to set up a warehouse. But what comes with those warehouses is 700 additional diesel trucks that is adding to the cumulative burden in these neighborhoods who already have some of the worst air quality in the state and some of the highest levels of asthma and cancer. So it's just not worth bringing in these logistics facilities when they could have these detrimental health impacts. And they're not even union jobs a lot of the times. Like, you know, you hear kind of the nightmarish stories about Amazon and the temporary workers and the conditions. So, you know, I think that communities have been sacrifice zones for so long that this isn't a great model for job creation in environmental justice communities. There's also a CDF, combined disposal facility. So my neighborhood is along the Calumet River. If you look at the Chicago River and the Calumet River, you can see my sign. There's the greening of the Chicago River and trashing the Calumet River. Downtown, you can dine al fresco, you can walk with your children along the beautiful revamped Chicago River. There is no public access to the Calumet River in my neighborhood. It is dominated by over 200 industries. And with that, there's, you know, all this handling of materials that falls to the floor bed, and it's toxic, and that needs to get dredged pretty much every 20 years. And those dredgings need a home. And they want to, we already have one CDF in my neighborhood, and it's at one of our local parks, Calumet Beach, beautiful beach, if you ever get a chance to visit it. And so they want to add even more dredgings to that CDF, because the Calumet River right now is just so, it really needs to get that sediment off the ground, because it's slowing down the production of the barges. And, industry wants to make their money, and they can't have slow barges. So they need to, dredge the sediment. And so we're really concerned about adding even more to the existing CDF, because it is so close to Lake Michigan, and you see all the flooding and the rising waters, and we would hate for this to leak into Lake Michigan. And so we kind of have the unfortunate decision of do we place the CDF close to Lake Michigan, or do we place it close to homes? Horrible decisions that we have to make in our neighborhood, and we're still up in the air. We don't know what's going on with that. Invert is another facility trying to move in. They're part of Ozinga, and they want to mine and build an underground warehouse. It's a huge example of greenwashing. If you go to their website, it talks about vertical gardens and things like that, but they would mine for 10 years before any sort of warehouse would take place. And we really think it's just a mining operation disguised as a warehouse. And the one that has been dominating the news for the past year is General Iron. General Iron is a notorious polluter that was located in Lincoln Park, a wealthy, predominantly white neighborhood. And the city kind of rolled out the red carpet, allowing them to close up shop, and kind of facilitated a move for them to come to the Southeast side. And this is just a clear example of environmental racism. Throughout our campaign, we talked about it's not good enough for the north side, it's not good enough for the Southeast side. General Iron, this is me with my son outside of the north side facility. Really loud, really noisy. You could kind of taste the metal. So the proposed location is across the street from our only high school and our only park. And it's just really scary. And so for the past year, we've been battling this. And, we've been urging the city that there's some immediate things that they can do to kind of not only remedy these things moving in, but just kind of to create equity in Chicago. And so we need to increase fines on the city's worst polluters. Like I said before, we desperately need more inspectors to catch these bad polluters in the act. We need to get at the root of the problem and fix the permitting processes that take into account the accumulation of dirty industry. We can't just look at, this is just General Iron moving in. Right next door is North Point, and to the left of it would be Invert, and across the street is Horsehead, where they burn tires. You need to look at the large picture and its impact on the community. There needs to be a seat at the table for residents. And so Natural Resources Defense Council, where I work, I'm fortunate that I get to wear two hats, and I've seen firsthand how I'm invited to the table more so because of my position at NRDC rather than my position as a community member. And that is not right. Community members who don't work at a big green organization are just have a right to be at the table. They're experts, they have a lived experience, and their voices need to be heard, and they know what's best for their neighborhood. We need to put a ban, especially during the pandemic. We were asking for a halt of all permitting, because it was just you kind of saw in Little Village, there was a smokestack that they demolished, and all the contaminated soot blanketed the neighborhood. And we need to prioritize the most vulnerable communities for developments that are not polluting industries. We in the Southeast side have created a green economic corridor. We have a vision of what we want and job creation that won't make us sick. So, we had to get really creative in our General Iron campaign over the past year because we were living through a pandemic. And so we did some art activism. We teamed up with some artists, and this mural was on display at a Patagonia store in Lincoln Park, a few blocks away from General Iron's facility. And this is kind of symbolic of the tale of two cities. You see kind of my neighborhood, really toxic and dirty. And then you see downtown and, you know, the access to the waterway and, you know, a thriving child who is allowed to play and doesn't have to kind of be on guard all the time, you know, thinking about their health. And so, you know, just kind of thinking of creative ways. Again, like we have a lot of visual learners. It was an awesome, amazing opportunity that was presented to us. And really, with our General Iron campaign, we utilized the power of storytelling and social media. Just like how we're all on Zoom today, I felt like I met some of my best friends on Zoom and on Twitter and on Instagram. We had Deny the Permit trending almost every week on Twitter, and it really got a lot of attention from elected officials. We had over 40 organizations sign on to our letters urging the Illinois EPA, urging the mayor to stop this permit. We had video testimonials, we used art, we were in the news all of the time. We had an op-ed in the Tribune, we had the Guardian cover us, we had a Now This video, we had a Brute video, and all of this led to a lot of accomplishments. You know, like I said before, Manganese, we did get a ban on any new or expanded manganese facilities in the city of Chicago. We don't have a ban on the existing facilities, but this is a start. We do have new rules in place for handling bulk materials. We had a deficiency letter sent to RMG and General Iron, and just last week, the EPA administrator, Michael Regan, Biden appointed him. He came to the Southeast side, took a tour, and sat with us for over 2 hours. So this is all because of our nonstop advocacy. You know, it was really just sort of a grassroots kind of thing. This is what, you know, we're all just like regular people trying to defend our friends and our family. And so, you know, we need to take it to the next level. We need to, you know, amend these zoning laws. We need more health studies. We need environmental justice legislation, which unfortunately did not pass this week. Neither did the Clean Energy Jobs Act, but there's still hope for that. And so, you know, we're meeting up again this week to talk with our allies to kind of keep the momentum with this environmental justice legislation. And, you know, with Michael Reagan's letter that he sent to the mayor before he came and visited my neighborhood, the mayor's response was, yes, we will, you know, we will kind of halt our permitting process for General Iron. And we're going to do this, you know, health study. The US EPA is urging, you know, before a permit is issued for General Iron, that there's this thorough environmental justice analysis to be done, which we're so grateful for because there hasn't been one done before. And also the mayor, was first time, she said that the city is going to tackle a cumulative burden ordinance. This is something that environmental justice advocates have been wanting for years. And so we want to make sure that our voices are heard and that, you know, the things that we want to see are put into that ordinance. So those are the things that we will be working on this summer is, you know, continuing to write and draft environmental justice legislation and get champions, you know, legislative champions for that. And the same thing with the cumulative burden ordinance to write and draft that and get some city council champions, because it's just been far too long that these neighborhoods have had to suffer the dire consequences. So, you know, just sort of the lessons learned is that the Illinois permitting process is super broken, as we saw with General Iron. You know, there's a few key things that happened that we learned is that there wasn't a third party appeal. So, you know, residents, our voices weren't really taken into consideration. Like I said before, if you're a factory and you want to get a permit and your neighborhood is zoned for that, you're going to get the permit. And we don't think that that's right. And so that's why we're trying to draft environmental justice legislation that would take into consideration third-party appeal and take into consideration this cumulative burden. But they have to look at the bigger picture of, wait, this isn't just like one industry moving in, and we can't just look at it in a silo. We have to say, wait, this facility wants a permit, and it's, you know, they have some of the worst air quality in the state. You know, they have high cancer rates, they have high asthma rates, and there's already 200 industries there. We need to think about stop concentrating all this industry in this neighborhood. We worked with the Chicago Environmental Justice Network, which are other groups in Chicago that are experiencing the same things. We had a lot of protests outside of Lori Lightfoot's house. You can see in the photo there, we had our art installation. We had so many allies in this fight, from the Poor People's Campaign. Reverend Barber spoke at one of our press conferences, one of the last ones we had, and he said, our General Iron campaign was a clear example of a local issue gaining, symbolically showing a national movement to address environmental racism. And that was so awesome to hear. You know, like, we need to really highlight these local issues because they do have national implications. There's so many other communities in the United States who are experiencing similar things, and they just aren't talked about enough. So that's why it was so important for us to have our voices out there in the media. We really use the media as a tool for our cause. And here's some other ways to get connected. I know I talked mostly about my neighborhood, the Southeast Side, but here's a list of other amazing organizations that are part of the Chicago Environmental Justice Network: Blacks and Greens, People for Community Recovery, Alvejo, Neighbors for EJ, the Southeast Environmental Taskforce, which I'm part of, and the Coalition of Ban Petcoke, which I'm also part of, NHL. Ways you can connect or attend a meeting. And if you have any sort of skill set to offer, like retweeting goes a long way. Sharing content, sharing an Instagram post, sharing a Facebook post, signing a petition, phone banking, signing on to a letter, all of those things, as we have seen, we caught the attention of EPA administrator, they go a long way. So that's it for my presentation. So thank you. Take questions now.
Gina, thank you so much. Yeah. It's a lot to cover, and we appreciate that. And also that reminder of the local, you know, global connection with these issues. So let's go to the chat for a minute, because there were some questions there from Sandra. Let's see, I wanted to start from the bottom. Are any federal agencies involved in this issue, or is it just, is it the Illinois EPA?
Yeah, so actually the organizations I belong to filed a Title VI complaint against the Illinois EPA in their role in allowing a permit to be issued for General Iron. And so the US EPA is working kind of on a mediation process with the Illinois EPA to address that. Department of Justice there's also a HUD complaint that was filed against the city of Chicago, but that's not federal. But yeah, US EPA is working with the Illinois EPA, and it's kind of like, what's going on here? How did this slip through the cracks?
Okay, so they are involved. That's good. And then another question here: wasn't the Calumet River restored several years ago, so people were once again able to fish in it? Is this now a different and worsening situation?
I mean, people still fish in it, I think, but like the CDF, obviously there's a ton of toxic dredgings at the bottom and it needs to get remediated. So it isn't really a waterway that is for recreational use. No one's kayaking on there or swimming. I mean, I wouldn't feel safe at all. There's no public access. It's not really like advertised as like, this is part of your neighborhood for you to use. It's dominated by industry.
Okay. Cynthia, you want me to go on to the next one? Or hit K?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go to Kay. Kay, I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, I kind of have a more global question in regards, and sometimes those get me into trouble, so I acknowledge that. I was born in Hammond, Indiana. My father's a World War II vet. He was a chem engineer. He worked at the TNT plant in what is now Midwayne. I don't know if I said that correctly. And he also worked at some TNT plants in northern Wisconsin during the early years of the war, basically building bombs. And of course, at that time, the corridor that you're speaking about was a hotbed for all kinds of industrial development. And at that time, the area was probably lower middle class white. And over time, as people like my family recognized this is not a healthy place for us to raise our family, they moved. So I'm trying to get a little better understanding of when you talk about racial, not quite sure what the word is that you used, but essentially everybody who got left and had to stay there were people who couldn't afford to leave or were continuing to be dependent on the industries that were still viable. And I don't quite know how that fits in. You know, I kind of wish in some regards we could just blow the whole place up and start over, but that's not how the world works. And I know at one time, you know, there was the EPA Superfund, which became, you know, depleted very quickly when the government recognized how expensive it was to clean up these sites that came out of that time period. Did I say that correctly? Midwin? You know, they made bombs there. That land is polluted with TNT and nitrates and all sorts of stuff. I don't know if they ever cleaned that up or whether they just covered it up. I don't mean politically, but, you know, just dirt on it and off we go. So anything in that regard that you would feel comfortable responding to, I would appreciate. I know it's a lot. So
I think that you're totally right. The, you know, Mexican immigrants couldn't afford to leave my neighborhood, and so they were the ones left behind and, you know, kept the jobs as they were still dwindling down. Didn't have the resources to move. How it's environmental racism is that the city is allowing it to still be this dumping ground, to still be the sacrifice zone, to do these cover-ups, to not make improvements or investments in these communities, while they're investing on the north side, giving tons of tax breaks for Sterling, $6 billion in Lincoln Park. That kind of investment isn't made on the southeast side. In Indiana as well, those cover-ups do happen. There was public housing complex that was built on lead contaminated soil, and Indiana knew about it. East Chicago, Indiana knew about it, allowed this property to be built, and now those residents are displaced. And like, I lived here forever. Like I always get the question, like, why don't you just move? I feel privileged that I can afford to move. That's not the same narrative for everyone else. I don't feel like I should. Like, we've been here for so long. Like, if we can like send a rover to Mars, we can clean up this neighborhood and live and live harmoniously and have clean, green jobs. I don't think it's that far of a stretch for us to still be left behind in this industrial 20th century, while the rest of Chicago is living in the 21st century with like all this beautiful, green, sustainable infrastructure. I think there just needs to be some political will and some money. You know, they need to invest in these neighborhoods and invest in these people.
And I did pay attention to your list, but you know, if you best case scenario over a period of many years, I would assume, what would you like to see that area look like as far as habitability, you know, clean industry, you know, what would be an honorable and even a reasonable goal, even though we know these are 20, 30 year of adventures?
Yeah, you know, like my neighborhood is very blue collar, working class community. So we would like to see those manufacturing jobs come back, but in a clean, sustainable way. Like we have the Ford plant here. Can we make strictly electric vehicles with electric vehicle trucks? You know, so that's not having this diesel contamination on us. Can we create jobs where people are making wind turbines in some of these brownfields? Can we have community solar farms? Also, it's a beautiful neighborhood. We have wetlands and marshes here. So there's this dichotomy of like a forest preserve, and then you turn the corner, you're tearing your eye and there's a factory. And so I feel like I would love to see a lot more of that restoration and conservation taking place also. I didn't really grow up having access to nature because it was just like not really encouraged. But now that I'm a parent, I take my son to walks at our forest preserve, and Big Marsh is this kind of big park in our neighborhood as well. And I take him there like on a weekly basis. Like I want him to have access to these green spaces, and they need to be even bigger. And so working on ways to find opportunities to get funding for that as well.
Thank you.
Gina, there was a question about some changes in how aldermen and the planning and zoning works, that they're not completely in charge of that. Can you speak to that a little bit, and has that made a difference? Or is that still in transition?
Yeah, it's like still in transition. You know, I think with this cumulative burden ordinance, this is our first step. It's seeing how the city council will vote on it. I mean, it's some of the more green things that we've tried to get through has been pretty split within city council. Chicago politics are so hard to navigate because, you know, a lot of industry pays for their campaigns. General Iron gave over like 100,000 campaign contributions to a lot of key key aldermen, and that's how they were in operation for so long.
Mary Lou, did you want to go on unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, and Gina, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Preservation Chicago, and we are working in Southeast Chicago with some community members to restore that historic character, which you have an incredible architecture in Southeast Chicago. We're working with the South Chicago Masonic Temple to try and save that, but also to see the entire lakefront there turned from sludge field and you know, dirty industry to having a Lincoln Park and Jackson Park, quite honestly, the entire rest of the lakefront except the last 4 miles there saved. But what are some of the key legislation at the city level, I guess, that could really make your job easier, right? I look at the same thing, like I have like a top 4 list of things I could see changed in the city of Chicago that would make my job easier every day. So yeah. What are some state, you know, and HUD is federal, but I mean, local and state, we have more control of right now, but what are some things we could be pushing for?
There was an air quality ordinance that was passed a few months ago at city council, but we didn't think it went far enough because it didn't have any mining provisions in it, since the Southeast side is concerned about a mining operation opening up shop. So definitely want to address the mining. And then, you know, the cumulative burden ordinances are a huge thing that we're working on, just so that, you know, if pay to play, like if you want to set up shop in the south or west side of Chicago, you can. It's how the laws are written right now. So those are like the 2 huge things I would love in my lifetime to see the U.S. Steel land, 700 acres, turn into something, but it's just so contaminated. We've heard it would be like $1 billion to clean up.
Well, I'd love to exchange contact information so we could work with you on that.
Yeah.
And that's all. I mean, you're in Alderman Sidlowski Garza's ward, right?
Yeah, 10th ward.
Yeah.
There was a question a little earlier. Someone who lives, Martha lives near an asphalt plant, and should she be concerned about air quality near an asphalt plant?
Yeah, so McKinley Park, Neighbors for Environmental Justice are battling matte asphalt. And that can also have, you know, a lot of exacerbate asthma, cause neurological damage. So I can connect them to Neighbors for EJ, so they could. They've done a lot of extensive research on their asphalt plant and the impacts it has on their community.
I'm wearing my Lavejo t-shirt right now, Gina.
Oh, cool. I love it. I love Lavejo. They're the best.
Kim Wasserman, I think we are sisters from another mother. Do you know?
yeah, she's so awesome.
At Lavejo, you know, they're dealing with, you mentioned the smokestack and Crawford former coal plant, but I can't even think of the name of the organization that did the demolished that, but they have another historic coal plant, probably more historic, definitely more historic than Crawford and Pilsen. So they're just going to keep on spreading until we say, I mean, it's really equitable investment and equitable environmental clearance to the, I think that General Iron was horrific. Like, it's in Lincoln Park. It's been there for years, decades. We don't like it. Let's move it to Southeast Chicago. They'll be okay. They're kids. Just jack up your asthma medicine a little bit. It's all good.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Sandra has another question. Sandra, go ahead.
Thank you. The question I have is, do the corporations have a means to capture the manganese that is airborne from their smokestacks or wherever it comes from? Is there a technical capability that they are not taking advantage of to address the manganese, the airborne manganese?
Yeah, they said that they've made like, you know, $1 million in investments. So we found that the fugitive dust happens when they're unloading the manganese onto barges. It just kind of like blows everywhere. I think also part of the problem is this certain facility, SH Bell, is right across the street from home. So like, even if they have all these things in place, there's going to be fugitive dust, and it's so close, it will fall and impact people. So it should, you know, there's like no buffer zone. That's why we don't think it should be handled.
I get you. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Lloyd to ask his question. If you can unmute Lloyd. He has posted a question here, and I'll let you go ahead and say it.
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious about, you seem to link warehouses and asphalt plants kind of in the same bucket as a polluter. And, you know, I understand heavy manufacturing, but I'm just curious as to why warehouses would be categorized the same way.
Yeah, warehouses, because of all the diesel trucks and their emissions, there's a lot of extensive studies on how that really exacerbates asthma. And so we already have so many trucks from the 200 industries in the neighborhood. Like, even adding 100 would be detrimental, but to add like 700, which is usually the magic number with these industries. And the North Point logistics facility would be right next to the proposed location of General Iron, which is across the street from our only supermarket and our local school in a park. So it's all about like proximity as well. And when everyone's moving into the neighborhood, like that like leaves less and less space, and it's just like kind of invading closer to homes now.
Yeah. Go ahead, thank you.
Gina, we probably have to wrap up pretty soon, but really quickly, one of the issues are people knowing that these things are coming down the pike. Sometimes we're aware in all of our communities of decisions that are going to be made, but a lot of times we're not until it's in crisis mode. And with also language, not having public announcements bilingual, for your community so that people can be engaged and participate. Is there a building awareness in the public about these issues and the importance of being advocates?
Yeah, that was one of our complaints with the Illinois permitting process, that there wasn't, that they expected to have like 2 public comment period sessions during a pandemic on Zoom, where like it's a low income community and not everyone has internet access, and that there wasn't translation services. So that was part of some of the language that we put into our environmental justice legislation, that there needs to be timely notification. Same thing with the cumulative burden ordinance. There's these like kind of all these steps to take before like they go to get a permit, like they have to go through these boards, and every step of the way there should be a public comment period process, and it should be very transparent. So with General Iron, there was this first step that they had to get was going to the zoning board of appeals, and they only notified our aldermen, who did not read the email and didn't notify the neighborhood. So we were scrambling. Someone leaked to us the day that this zoning board of appeals hearing was happening. We had 4 of us who could make it downtown to testify. It would have, maybe we could have stopped General Iron in its tracks right there if we could organize 100 people. But the fact that they only notified our alderwoman who didn't notify us got us to where 2 years later, this ugly fight is happening. So that would be part of the language in the cumulative burden ordinance, is to have these public notification processes.
Thank you. Thanks, Gina. Okay, well, Gina, you're welcome to hang around and listen to some community announcements, which Anne will lead now. We always wrap up with that. And I want to thank you so much on behalf of Environmental Defenders as co-host, Duke's Ale House and Kitchen as co-host, and the Green Drinks Committee for being our speaker, and hopefully our last speaker on Zoom, although again, we will be hybrid, which Anne, I think, is going to repeat to the group for those who dropped in a little bit after the initial announcements.
Thank you so much, everyone. I had fun.
Thank you, Gina. Yay. Okay, Leslie, did you want to introduce the things, or you want me to?
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we'll start again for those who joined us late. For next month, July 7th, our next Green Drinks will be a hybrid event. We will have a speaker via Zoom. We have room. We are going to start back at Duke's Ale House, some of us, because we are limited to the number of people we can have in the room, to 25 members of our Green Drinks community in person who must be vaccinated, and we will ask that you wear masks even if you have been completely vaccinated. And when Cynthia sends out the announcement for next month's event shortly after this one, she will include the way to make your reservations. It will be reservations only in person at Duke's Ale House upstairs, back to our old time of 5 to 7 p.m. And there you will be able to get beverages. However, there will not be food available. You can place an order on the app and pick it up on your way out the door at the end, or join them at the restaurant beforehand. I'm sure Zach can bring you up to date on the status of Duke's. And I think that's it on that. And it's the topic Pat introduced to us before will be on the regional bike trails and regional biking. And we'll now do our 1-minute presentations. If anybody has any, I'm gonna start with one for the Defenders. I'm turning the timer on for myself. The Defenders are having our annual garage sale in July. So we will be getting information out. The volunteers positions are available, will be posted probably online in the next couple of days. I set them up today, and we will be happy to take your good donations in good condition at Algonquin Township Highway Garage Building B at the Algonquin Township site on July, I believe it's I want to say it's Sunday, I think it's the 11th, from 2 to 5 p.m. is when we will start taking donations, but they must be in good conditions, and you'll get an announcement as to what items we cannot take. But that is going to be one of our major fundraisers this year. So I'm done, and I will now reset it. Is someone else up? Kim Hankins has got her hand.
He's quick.
Yeah, she put her hand up. Okay, you may start as soon as you're unmuted.
Okay, hi everybody. There's two really important recycling events happening in the month of June. June 19th is a latex paint collection at McHenry County College from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. There is a suggested donation of $1 per gallon or $5 for 5 gallons. The college is hosting on the site. Sorry, the dog would like to have a comment. Anyway, the second one is the following Saturday, June 26th. That is a household hazardous waste collection. That's the first one we've had in over 7 years. So I have a feeling it's going to be a big one. This is put on by the Illinois EPA, and it will be at the Huntley Reed Road campus. For a full list of what's going to be collected, please go to the college's website at www.mchenry.edu/green, and you'll see the green guide in there, and there's a complete list. And I'm sorry about the dog. Any questions, you're welcome to call me or shoot me an email.
Thank you. Right on time. Okay. Anybody? Okay, Cynthia. Oops, I muted you by accident. Sorry. That was me. Unmute.
No problem. I will not take it personally. Our transportation action team of the Environmental Defenders would like to let everyone know that June 25th through July 2nd is Bike Instead Week. We don't call it Bike to Work Week because a lot of people are still working remotely. And it's just a message to say bike instead if you're going to a friend's house or going to the store, just to keep that in mind and help our environment out by doing a little biking instead of jumping in your car. Unless it's electric like mine, and then you might be okay, but I'm still gonna ride my bike, but not to work. It's too far. I did that once, 3 hours. It took 3 hours. I also I stopped for breakfast. Also want to introduce Destiny Seaton. She's I don't know if she can come on camera. She can. Yeah.
There she is. Hi, Destiny.
All right. Destiny is the Environmental Defenders new communications and membership specialist. And we're so excited for Destiny to be with us. And that must be your husband, Wes, in the background. Hello, nice to meet you. That's awesome. Very nice to meet you. And we'll look forward to whoever's the lucky 25 to come to our event next month in person. We'll get to meet Destiny in person.
Yeah, nice to meet you all digitally.
Welcome.
Thanks. Okay, my 1 minute's up, I'm sure.
Oh no, it wasn't. You were right on time. Okay.
Song? I don't know. Never mind.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I've got one from Nancy Sheetselt, who had to disappear. So I will announce that the Crystal Lake Park District is reopening their butterfly exhibit, and they're having a grand opening on this Saturday from 10 until 2 at the let's see, what's the name? It's a visitor center.
It's the Nature Center over by Veterans Acres. Nice spot there. Please come join them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if nobody else is going to go, go ahead, Mary Lou.
It's just in the realm of recycling and reuse. We're having a Fox River Grove community recycling or garage sale. I just have to check the calendar. It's the weekend, I think, of June 15th through this. It's the Thursday and Saturday through Saturday before Father's Day.
Okay.
I should have my.
And where is it?
It is, well, we're going to have a map.
Okay.
But it is basically, right now we have about 20 households, and Fox River Grove is about a half mile long. So we'll have signage. You can go one of a few ways, but we will have a map too. We're going to post that on all the McHenry County and Cary Grove and Crystal Lake garage sale sites on Facebook. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mary Lou. Leslie?
Yeah, hi. I don't know if you're able to join me, but on June 16th is the Water Forum. It's on Zoom or online. Scott's here somewhere, I think, but it's an excellent,
yes.
It's an excellent program. And if you have a couple hours from 5:30 to 7:30 in 2 weeks, I hope you'll join us. He always works very hard on it, and there's lots of good information. So put that on your calendar if you can. Any other announcements this evening?
Let me just add to that, that if you would like the information about how to get the link on Hopin, if you went to the annual meeting of the Defenders, the Water Forum is also using Hopin. You can send me an email and I will get the link to you, defendersdirector@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to send you the link so you can sign up.
And I'm going to ask Zach to come off of mute and give us an update on the status of Duke's Ale House.
Yeah, they keep lightening the restrictions for us. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next month. So there might be more announcements to come. I know that we have limited capacity, but the rules look like they're going to be switching again on June 11th. So they're going to be lightening up the restrictions quite a bit. I think we're actually moving to phase 5. So which is basically normal capacity for businesses. But we still plan on discussing what we're going to do for green drinks anyways. But we are excited that we're going to be able to do that and be open later and all of that. So, but yeah, so exciting.
Good news.
Times ahead. Good news ahead. Exactly. So we are celebrating Pride Month this month. So we are selling Pride shirts and we'll be donating to charities for that. So if you do get by or you want to do curbside, you can purchase the shirt that way. So they're Duke's Pride shirts. We're posting those on Facebook tomorrow, but so stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Zach. Ann Legg has her hand up.
Yes, I do. Richfield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church is having its first virtual Living Waters fiesta. We support clean water, purified water in communities in Guatemala. Go to the church website, rclpc.org, and click on calendar to find information about it.
Thank you, Ann. Scott, go ahead and unmute yourself.
All righty. Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Kuykendall. I'm the Water Resources Specialist for McHenry County. And just want to remind everybody of our upcoming Water Forum that'll be happening on June 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 online. And it's an annual event. This year it's going to be online, but we've done a lot of things to try and make it festive. The first 100 people to register and attend will be eligible for a gift certificate to one of 3 wonderful McHenry County restaurants, including Duke's Ale House and Kitchen, 1776, or Forked Foods and Grazing. And we will have 3 featured speakers, myself included. I'll be talking about water resources of McHenry County and our Water Resources Action Plan. We'll then have the U.S. Geological Survey's scientist who maintains our monitoring well network and does our water quality monitoring for McHenry County. And then we'll have the hydrogeologist who does all the planning for the deep bedrock aquifers for the region from the Illinois State Water Survey. So you'll have an opportunity to learn a lot about water resources. And it's a festive, entertaining environment, and you can register just by going to McHenryH2O.com, and you'll see the link there. So once again, McHenryH2O.com, and if you have any further questions, you can find my email there as well. But hope to see you there, and give me a call if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I think that's it.
Okay.
So thanks again to Gina for an excellent presentation and really helping enlighten us to these issues that we know are around, but just don't hear about as often as we should. And hopefully you can all find a way to help support them in what they're doing, and advocacy is always important. So we hope you'll join us July 7th, either at Duke's or on Zoom. And stay tuned for any additional information on that, but we'll hold it at that for now. And thank you again, everyone, for being part of this evening. Happy to see you all. Enjoy your month of June, summer, ice cream, whatever it is, just get out and enjoy it. We'll see you soon. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.